The forest had grown quieter. No more footsteps in the dark. No more drums in the wind. The world had gone still, as if exhaling after centuries of holding its breath. Aru and Aya had walked for days after the cliff. Their bodies sore, their minds weary, but their hearts, slowly, softly, beginning to trust the silence. They crossed 3 rivers and entered a land neither of them had known. A valley nestled between distant mountains and endless fields of grass, where the wind danced through the trees like music, and birds called from branches that had never heard screaming. Here, they stopped. There was no village, no roads. Only a ruined stone hut beside a small river, overgrown with ivy, its roof half collapsed, but its bones still strong. Greater than, it's perfect, Aya said, running her fingers across the mossy stone. Aru looked around. It's forgotten. Just like us. They smiled, and began to build. The first weeks were hard. The roof leaked. Firewood was wet. Aya caught a fever that lasted 2 nights and left Aru sleepless, burning damp herbs beside her to bring the heat down. But they made it through. He built her a bed from fallen oak. She stitched curtains from linen sacks. They fished, they planted, they hunted, and slowly, the house stopped feeling like something borrowed from ghosts. It became theirs. Aru had never imagined peace could feel so strange. Sometimes, in the early mornings, he would wake in a panic, expecting to see the circle painted in blood outside the door again. Sometimes Aya would speak names in her sleep, names that no longer existed, and cry without knowing why. But the longer they lived in the valley, the more those memories dulled, like wounds scabbed over with time. They laughed more, read to each other, danced by firelight, played like children in the first snow. And one morning, as the trees began to bloom, Aya placed Aru's hand on her belly. Greater than, there's a heartbeat, she said. His fingers trembled. He couldn't feel anything yet. But he didn't need to. He kissed her, then knelt on the grass, forehead against her stomach. They wept. Aru carved a cradle from cedar. Aya sewed tiny clothes, humming a tune neither of them remembered learning. Months passed like wind through wheat. The belly grew. The house expanded. So did the love. And one spring afternoon, with the river in full song and the sky full of sun, they stood beneath the lone pine tree at the edge of the meadow. Aru wore white. Aya wore the same shawl she had nearly died in, mended, readied, reborn. There were no guests. Only birds. Only the river. Only truth. They tied cords of bark around each other's wrists. They spoke no vows. Their silence was enough. And that night, under a sky riddled with stars, they became more than survivors. They became one. The child came during a storm. Rain pounded the roof, and wind shook the shutters. Aya's screams echoed through the valley. Aru never left her side, though his hands shook. He boiled water, wiped sweat from her face, whispered every word of comfort he could remember. And finally, a cry. Not pain. Life. A daughter. Hair black as crow feathers. Skin soft and pink. She opened her eyes within minutes, and in them, Aru saw Aya's fire. They named her Ella, a name that meant nothing. And yet, everything. She was peace. She was the proof that their past hadn't destroyed them, only carved space for something new. Time moved faster after that. Ella grew quickly, crawled before her first spring, walked by the fall. She had Aya's sharpness, Aru's patience. She loved the river, and sometimes it seemed the river loved her back, the way it shimmered when she touched it, the way frogs and fish danced near her fingers. They told her stories each night. Not of pain or fear, but of wonder, magic, hope. Greater than, were you always together? She asked one night. Aru smiled. No. Aya added, but once we found each other, we never let go. Ella beamed. Then I won't let go of either of you. Ever. They laughed, and didn't notice the shadow that passed over the moon. It began on a night like any other. Ella asleep. Fire crackling. Aru carving a flute. Aya reading an old, yellowed page. A knock. Soft. 3 times. Aru froze. They hadn't heard another knock in years. He opened the door. A man stood there. Grey beard. Gentle eyes. A walking stick in his hand. Greater than, I come from the east, he said. Storms took my path. May I rest here tonight? Aru hesitated. Aya joined him. The man didn't look dangerous. He looked worn, weathered. Greater than, please, he said. I won't stay long, and I have gifts for your child. Ella's name caught in Aru's chest. Aya looked at him, then nodded. They gave the old man soup and a dry blanket. Ella slept through the night. The man never stopped smiling. Greater than, you've built something beautiful here, he said. Aru nodded. We try. Greater than, it's rare, the man continued. To see love survive the past. Aya's eyes narrowed. You've been here before. Greater than, no, the man said. But the trees told me stories. He left in the morning. But his presence lingered. And 2 days later, they found a gift left behind. A carved box, no bigger than a hand. Inside it, a folded note. In ink far too fresh. Greater than, the name you buried still remembers you. Aru's hands shook. Aya took the box and threw it into the fire. But it did not burn. Not even the note. That night, Aya stood by the river, staring at her reflection. Greater than, we were supposed to be free. Aru joined her. We are free. She looked at him. Greater than, no. We are watched. Aru placed a hand on her shoulder. Let them watch. But inside, he felt it. A shift. A crack. He didn't tell her about the dreams he'd been having. Dreams of the circle. Of cloaked figures returning. Of Ella standing alone on a cliff. He didn't say anything. Because for the first time in his life, Aru was afraid to speak a truth. A week passed. And another knock came. But this time, there was no one there. Only a letter nailed to the door. Aya read it first. Then Aru. It was an invitation. From a nearby village neither of them had heard of. Come. We remember you. Let us honor you. A feast. A fire. A name no longer feared. Aru looked at Aya. Aya looked at Ella. Greater than, it could be a trap, she whispered. Greater than, or it could be peace, Aru said. And in the wind, something shifted again. A choice. A path. They didn't decide right away. But the letter stayed on the table. And that night, Ella woke up screaming. Greater than, the circle is coming. They rushed to her side. Greater than, what did you see? Aru asked, heart pounding. Ella shook, her eyes wide. They're in the fire. The one you'll sit beside. Aya's breath caught. Aru pulled them both close. And suddenly, he knew. Peace had never been permanent. Only borrowed. And the price would soon be due.